Hey, guys, Graham and Chris here with you, coming back out of left field. Man, what's going on, dude? We have a lot of kind of craziness going on as we wrap out the month of August as we head into September, man. And what you seen everything? I know you're kind of going crazy with the Giants going 3 back to the Dodgers.
Yeah, it's been a crazy ride this second half, right? I mean, not even a roller coaster, just more like a fall off a cliff.
Precipitous fall? Yeah, exactly. I mean,
baseball's been crazy for the last couple days too. I mean, apparently the trade deadline was not the end of movement. So we've had some crazy stuff going on with that. We've had people going on the DL. I mean, and then when you talk about the Dodgers and the Giants, I mean, who do you blame? Do you blame the Dodgers and say, hey, they're doing well, or do you blame the Giants and say, you guys haven't even hit double-digit wins since the All-Star break yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be happy if you're a Dodgers fan on what you saw from Rich Hill, who you picked up at the deadline and had that blister issue on his finger. And you got to hope that you're going to get more of what you saw last night from him down the stretch. They should see probably 3 or 4 more starts from him, probably closer to 3. And there's talk that Clayton Kershaw's back is feeling better, so hopefully we're going to be reporting on him coming back into the bigs. But you mentioned the DL, and that's a pretty good place to start because we made our final predictions, if you will, last week, with now all of a sudden the Royals had rattled off 9 straight before getting shut out yesterday by the Marlins. But now Stephen Strasburg is on the disabled list with the Nationals. And we know the Nationals are pretty much in a comfortable lead, in their division. They are, 73 and 53. So I mean, no one really close to them. I think they're roughly about 8 games up, in the East. But now Strasburg goes out with what was described as elbow soreness. Now, when they asked Strauss, he said that he believes it's 100% just a precautionary measure. But I mean, dude, I don't know, man. He's already had Tommy John surgery once. Injuries have plagued him throughout his career, although thankfully, which is kind of an ironic way to put it, but most of them have been back injuries. He's had a shoulder, he's had an oblique, but most of it has been back soreness or issues there. But this elbow has already been surgically repaired once. We've seen the stuff with the way that he delivers the ball, that W that he kind of gets in before he releases the ball, puts a lot of extra stress on that shoulder and elbow. And he just got almost $200 million, $175 million contract, and now this. So if you're a Washington Nationals fan, what are you thinking, bro?
Oh, crap is the first thing that goes through my mind. And I understand that Strasburg is kind of upbeat about this whole thing, and he's saying that he's 100% sure that this is a precautionary move. But as a guy who lived with the Dusty Baker era before, that'd be a first. This is a guy that, like you said, has gone down to Tommy John once. If he was in pain, he's been in pain for a while because, I mean, let's be honest, the guy started the season off at 15-1, and in his last 3 starts, he goes 0-3. Well, 0-3 is not a big deal in 3 starts, but 14.66 ERA is a big deal, especially for a guy like Strasburg. So if he was hurt, he's been hurt for a little bit, which is really, I think, what makes me wonder why they didn't put him on the DL retroactive to a specific date.
Now, you mentioned something, and I want kind of clarification. I know our listeners will too. Something about being in the Dusty Baker era. Now, I know Dusty was a fixture for a while in San Francisco, obviously in Cincinnati. But tell me what you mean by the Dusty Baker era in reference and concern with Strasburg's arm.
Well, you look at a guy like Jeremy Affeldt, man. Jeremy Affeldt had shoulder pain years ago, and Dusty Baker just kind of shrugged it off. I mean, Affeldt probably should have been on the DL. Didn't go to the DL. Ended up continuing to play. It's not the first time something like this happened with Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker is a great coach. I mean, he's the fifth or sixth winningest coach of all time. I mean, he's an amazing manager. He knows baseball really well, but he has a tendency to do a few things that make you a little bit nervous if you're a lover of a team that he's managing, right?
So you have a concern that he tends to overwork arms.
Right, and it's not just about the disabled list either. While he's a great tactician, he tends to leave guys in the game just a little too long. Just long enough to get pinched on. And that's really where he runs into most of his problems. Dusty Baker doesn't like to pull a guy out. Sometimes it feels like everything is too early for him, right? He feels like, man, I'm not going to pull a guy out in the fifth. He's just in the fifth inning. But it's not 1975 anymore. The fifth inning is a big deal now. That's the turn of the game. This is where if a guy's struggling, he needs to be out by the fifth.
Right. Baker
has a tendency to leave a guy in there till the sixth, sometimes the seventh inning, struggling or not struggling.
And let's be honest. I mean, as someone who in the military had hip issues, and we said you snapped your ankle on a ruck run, hips were bad from your time in the Army. We know there's a replacement for almost everything, right? Elbow, knee, hip, the whole 9 yards, okay? But every single time you get a replacement, something that isn't what you were born with, there's always a shelf life. It's been 6 years since Stephen Strasburg had a new ligament put into his elbow and had a year and a half of rehabilitation. Now, for guys that, say that happens to go bad, which it normally wouldn't for, someone who's not a pitcher or doing something, putting a continuous amount of stress on their elbow. But he had this replacement and now has gone back to his line of work. So usually we see guys who have Tommy John surgeries, at least big-name guys for the most part, continue without a problem. But there are a large number of guys who, as Mark Mulder once put it when he had his Tommy John surgery, it didn't work for him. He still felt pain. He had to retire. And he went and asked the doctor, said, what is going on? Why can't I play? And the doctor said, there has to be a 20%. He said, and unfortunately for you, you're in that 20%. And that 20% is referring to the 20% of guys who doesn't take or they just can't come back the same. So with as hard as Strasburg throws, man, I'm worried that he's going to end up hurting his elbow again. If he does, coming back from 2 is almost impossible.
I also need to amend. It wasn't Jeremy Affeldt. I'm not really sure why that name popped into my head. It was Jason Schmidt.
Okay.
Who played for the Giants. And the thing is, there are guys who come back quick. I mean, Matt Harvey came back quick, right? Now, could have been to his detriment. He threw really, really hard last season, and he threw really, really hard in the postseason.
I was going to say he had the fortunate misfortune, if you will, of having a deep, playoff run to the World Series, and that definitely didn't help his recovery.
Right. But there are going to be guys who can't do that, and you look at a guy like off the top of my head, a guy like Brian Wilson, who was a staple in San Francisco and then went to L.A. after his Tommy John surgery and just could never get back into it. He could never come back from that surgery. And, Matt Cain. Matt Cain's another one. I mean, he just is struggling. It seems like he's not going to come back from Tommy John. And unfortunately, a second surgery for Strasburg might change that percentage drastically.
And let's be honest, another surgery, he was fortunate this time to still keep one of the highest fastball velocities in the game today. I think Syndergaard is number one. Pretty sure Strauss is in the top 5.
Right.
Another surgery, I don't know if he can keep that. And granted, we said his changeup is a great pitch, but he needs that speed. And I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to keep that coming back again. And if he has to change his delivery mechanics, every mental piece of what he's done for 28, 29 years has to be completely rebuilt, and you're paying $175 million hoping that it rebuilds in his mind properly.
Right. And one of the hardest things, especially for a guy like Strasburg, who's so ingrained in his pitching delivery, who's so ingrained in how he does everything that he does, he's almost like one of those old school sort of superstitious ball players. He does everything the same every time. And it works for him, and he does throw really fast. The problem is, if he comes back and he doesn't throw fast, can he lean on breaking stuff? Can he lean on off-speed stuff? And I don't think he can, because I think that's what he was trying to do those last 3 starts. I think he was trying to get into the off-speed stuff. I think he was trying to get into the breaking ball, and it was hurting him. Not physically, but on the scoreboard.
Right. And his breaking stuff is great. I mean, like we said, that changeup, that 9-mile-an-hour difference, that thing just dives right into the dirt where Ramos blocks it, is a great pitch if it's set up properly. But if everything that you're throwing, is going to be, dipping and diving, I mean, we're not playing dodge, one of the 5 B's of dodgeball. We're not, we're not looking forward to dip, dive, duck, dodge, and I can't remember the last one, but yeah, dodge. There you go. If he loses velocity, the effectiveness of that changeup goes away, because if the changeup is still at 88, 89, 90, but your fastball now is only at 94, 95. Granted, there is still a 6-mile-an-hour difference, but it's going to be a lot easier for a hitter to start timing that. And if he has to change his mechanics, the question then becomes, will he start tipping something, right? The Nats need him healthy long term. They have been very, very fortunate this year to have one of the best pitching duos with him and Max Scherzer. And some have said that Strasburg has outpitched Max Scherzer this year, but now Tanner Roark has come in and is pitching just over a 3 ERA in 26 games. Now they've got 3 really good, which, we started to see that a lot of the teams that really have a chance at making a deep run have 3 in that, in that rotation that can get them deep into game, that can get them W's. Bryce Harper's a couple of years out from a contract year. I think the likelihood that he leaves in, 2019, is probably a lot better than if he's going to stay. So Strasburg has to get healthy if they have a chance at winning a World Series in the next couple of years.
I agree. And they're going to have to probably look in the offseason for someone who can bolster that rotation a little bit, because something tells me that Strasburg is short on time in Major League Baseball at this point.
I hope not. He was a real shot in the arm for the Nats. He was kind of the first big piece, aside from, when they spent a ton of money on Jason Worth to steal him from Philadelphia, and probably more money than they should have. But he was that piece. So we'll see what happens, guys. We'll keep you up to date on it. Reminder, you can find us on Twitter at OOLeftField. You can please like our Facebook page, Out of Left Field on Facebook. You can search just Out of Left Field. You'll see Out of Left Field hosted by Graham and Chris. I'm Graham, that's Chris. And any questions that we have on there, we'll do some polls, that kind of stuff. We want your feedback. We want, if we have something out there, leave your comments. We'll put it in a bunch of different pages out there. You'll see it on ours. And a lot of those good comments are going to make the show. Also a reminder, guys, Out of Left Field is brought to you by the Grueling Truth Network. Check out thegruelingtruth.net for previous broadcasts of our show. and take a look around while you're there at the other shows they have up. Check out their social media as well. You can find them at Grueling Truth on Twitter and Grueling Truth on Facebook. So, Battle, as we go ahead and kind of go cross-country here and go from the East Coast to the West Coast, we mentioned this at the top of the broadcast when we came in.
We're not the only ones going from the East Coast to the West Coast.
No. We mentioned the Dodgers, and as much of a knife as it is into your bleeding black and orange heart, which I should have just called black heart because, hey, that would have been funnier and maybe somewhat on point. But now all of a sudden, Carlos Ruiz has been traded, a veteran catcher from the Phillies, is heading to L.A. to pal up with his former teammate, Chase Utley. And catcher A.J. Ellis, a fan favorite and a guy who was very active in that community in California, has been traded over to Philadelphia.
Which
it definitely goes away from what we were planning on talking about with the Dodgers, but it's a good lead-in, man. I'm surprised. You get a little bit bigger of a bat in Ruiz. He's, AJ's hitting 194 this year. Ruiz hitting 261. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Is it? I don't think it shifts anything. It's not a big balance of power, any big, earth-shattering move. But
no.
What do you think it does for a team like the L.A. Dodgers to get a 10-year catcher who's caught the likes of Roy Halladay and has a World Series ring to bring him into that club?
I thought a lot about that when I first heard about it, and it confuses me a little bit. When I first heard about it, I was really confused because AJ's been a Dodger, and I thought he was going to retire a Dodger. I mean, he's Clayton Kershaw's guy, right? He's a loyal guy. He's a guy who's been with the team for a while. And then Ruiz is a great catcher. Obviously, caught Roy Halladay's perfect game, caught a no-hitter, and I think
in the same season.
I think that the addition of Ruiz is, in some ways, probably a slight boost defensively in his ability to call a game. I don't know what his personal chemistry with Clayton Kershaw is going to be, which could affect how they play together. Because, like I said, AJ was Kershaw's guy. But realistically, what the Dodgers did here was they traded away a guy who plays a really great catcher and doesn't hit very well for a guy who plays a really great catcher and hits okay. So I think anyone who says that this is the trade that's going to turn the corner for the Dodgers heading into the postseason is kidding themselves. I think that this is a trade that's going to keep the Dodgers from playing sub-500 baseball. Because the Dodgers are in first place right now, but not necessarily because the Dodgers are playing plus 500 baseball or plus 600 baseball. It's really because the Giants are playing sub-500 baseball and have been for quite a while. The Giants are in first place now just as much because the Dodgers are in first place now just as much because the Giants are losing as it is because they're winning.
And spoken like a true Giant fan who doesn't really want to, admit that the Dodgers are still playing really good baseball. I mean, I understand that the Giants have really just tanked it, but the Dodgers have been playing steady, consistent, back to basics baseball, and it's been winning games, and it's put them in a good position. I mean, come on. I mean, they beat the Giants, 2 out of 3 in the current series?
Yeah, 2 out of 3 in the current series.
With third game tonight. But, I mean, if we look at Ellis is in some of the worst numbers of his career. He's batting 194. He's got 1 dinger, 13 ribbies, and his on base is 285. So, I mean, nothing to write home about. The guy that has been sitting more, I guess, primarily, catching has been Grandal. And Grandal is hitting 232. He's hit 21 dingers, 346 on base. And Ruiz is 30 points higher than Grendel. So I think it's a good move.
I think it's a good move. I don't think it's a bad move. I just don't think it's the move that's going to change their season outlook. I don't think it's a move that's going to make a whole lot of difference going down the stretch. And you can call me a homer all you want. I mean, I get it. I like the Giants. But the fact of the matter is that when you're 8.5 games back, playing .563 baseball slowly and steadily doesn't get you into first place. What gets you into first place is when you're 6-4 in your last 10, and the first place team is 2-8 in their last 10, and not even cresting double digits since the All-Star break. When the first place team has lost over 25 games since the All-Star break, and you've won 50% of your games, that's where they've made up ground. They haven't made up ground because they're playing any better baseball than they were before the break. So you can call me homer all you want and tell me I'm not accepting it, but that's the facts. And what this is going to do is this is going to stop them from making a slide back into 500 or sub-500 baseball. This is going to bolster them to the point where they can keep this lead as long as the Giants continue to play poor baseball, or if the Giants do start playing better baseball and get back to some semblance of a normal second half, then they have a better opportunity to keep that lead.
Agreed. And like you said, I'm not at all saying that the Dodgers play is the only reason that they're in first place. I mean, there's no doubt that the Giants' inability to string together, consistent wins, it has clearly helped. But I do think that A.J. Ellis is going to help the Dodgers. He's allowed 23 stolen bases. He's only caught 9 stealing on the year. His defensive WAR was .6, and nothing great. None of the catches really that fantastic. One error, but he's played in 46 games. Ruiz, on the other hand, same thing. He's played in 47, but Ruiz has allowed 18 steals, but has caught 12. And Grandal has allowed 49 steals and has caught 19. So you're going to get better defense for sure. And
I agree.
And he brings a little bit more pop. So at least now when Grandal isn't in the lineup, you don't basically look at your number 8 hitter going, okay, there's out number 1. So he's going to bring you almost 50 points better, which is a good thing. So,
I have a question.
Okay, shoot.
I have a question though. So they bring Ruiz over, right? Because they want to improve their offense and defensive capabilities. And like you said, catching guys stealing is important because you can't let guys get into scoring position. And A.J. Ellis is just not doing the job, right? But Josh Reddick is not doing the job. And this is what we were going to talk about originally, right? Was what makes sense for Yasiel Puig at this point? Initially, we thought it was going to be something else, but now this move gets made. Turns out Josh Reddick maybe can't play in the National League. I don't know. In 20 games, the guy's batting .143, has an on-base percentage of .211, and is slugging .157, which means he's hitting a lot of singles. So if Josh Reddick's not getting the job done either at the plate, not that he's feeling badly, he's actually feeling pretty well, which he will do, but does it make sense to bring Puig back into this team, back into that locker room, and see if he's going to be another guy who can bolster the team to make a further push to get into the postseason? Because he's raking right now. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, the guy's raking.
Yeah, he's been hot. He's been hotter than the Oklahoma summers, and you and I both know how hot those can be. We were in Fort Sill in the summertime. But yeah, man. I mean, 14 games he has played in since he was sent down to the Oklahoma City Dodgers. Right? He is at a .396 average, a 1.146 OPS, 21 hits, 4 homers, and 12 driven in. He's been at the box 58 times. He has a handful, 5 Ks, in 58 plate appearances. So I understand the issue with Puig. We know that the way that he was acting, Hollywood got to him, okay? And the way that, I mean, even when he gets demoted, and then we see on Snapchat him just being an absolute fool. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, those were it was just straight up shenanigans. All right. So for those of you who are Super Troopers fans, there was your word of the day: shenanigans. There was one Dodgers official who's been quoted as saying, "quote, at some point, the talent, the maturity is going to take hold. Someone will benefit from it. We hope it's us, but it's hard to envision right now," close quote. I'm pretty sure when I read that quote, that came more close to the time when he was being an idiot on Snapchat than when he started hitting lights out on fire.
Right.
Trace Thompson is on a 60-day DL. Howie Kendrick right now is playing left field, who has been an infielder the majority of his career. Why in the world do you not bring him back up? Because if you want to trade him, he's on your 40-man roster. He still has to clear waivers, but you've got 5 or 6 days to get him back in the big leagues. Say, hey, guys, you want him? He can still do the job. Because once you get past the end of August, even if he gets traded, he becomes ineligible for postseason play unless he is replacing an injured player.
Right. And the thing is that you got a guy in Reddick who can move over to left field if Puig's not wanting to play that side of the field, right? Reddick's more of a utility guy than Puig is. I think he's a little set in his ways out there in right field. But if he's swinging the bat like that in Oklahoma, the question is, can he swing the bat like that in Major League Baseball? I mean, yeah, he's hitting really great. He's hitting .396. He's, driving in runs, but can he do that against Major League pitching? Can he hit that way against the best of the best, or are we going to see this guy drop down again to the low 200s in batting average and get frustrated and start swinging away again and striking out all the time? It's great that he's only struck out 4 times in the minor leagues. It shows a lot of patience at the plate. But when you're facing guys that are measurably better, almost exponentially better than the guys that you're facing in a 2A team, are you going to perform that way?
It's a fair question. I mean, AAA, you're going to see guys that are up in the big leagues a fair amount, and that's where he's at right now. I think what you have to hope for with this is that, A, he realizes that he is not, by any stretch of the imagination, irreplaceable. Okay? If they want to get rid of you, if they want somebody else in there, that's fine. Okay? You can be replaced. He's already had his pride shattered by being sent down. And that's a good thing. So what you have to hope for is that you still see the flashes of what you saw when he came up the first time. He can still hit. And now that maybe it is important for him to not feel like he has to be the guy, because he plays all out. We've seen him sacrifice his body. My biggest concern with him is the same concern I've had with Bryce Harper. And as they play so hard every play, he tends to get hurt a lot. We've seen him on the DL quite a bit. But if there was an issue with him in the clubhouse, being able to get along with teammates, his decision-making on and off the field, okay, we've seen him act a fool off the field. But at the same time, he's out there with his AAA teammates, hanging out with them, taking them out, buy and drink. Was it the smartest thing to blow up all over social media? No. But do you see him finding out that he can get along with guys and take them out? Sure. You have to hope that he's gotten off this idea of Hollywood and what it's all about. He's owed $18 million roughly the next 2 years. So let me ask you this then, because you and I both think it would be a smart idea, okay, a logical idea to bring him back up. They're making a run. They're 3 games up. I know you're hoping the Giants get hot. I'm hoping just because I made the pick that they're going to win the division, and if they don't, that throws our picks all kinds of sideways, okay? But what if they want to move him? Is there a team to you that would make sense to move? Because originally I thought the Marlins. And we'll get into why that's not going to work. But what about the Indians? Okay?
Cleveland's the first team that comes to mind. I mean,
and that's right, God. I mean, we know they're making a push. They're going to win their division unless the wheels completely fall off. Okay? They didn't do really anything to boost their outfield at the deadline. Their biggest thing was getting Andrew Miller from the Yankees. All right? You have Terry Francona, who has a reputation of being able to deal with personalities. Right? He won the 2004 World Series with Manny Ramirez. I can't recall if Manran was there in 2007. I thought maybe he was. I can't remember. But he was notoriously difficult, and he was full of antics. Okay, Kevin Millar it was an absolute goofball, but he was his own personality. And Tito knew how to manage those personalities. Cleveland is 26th in the big leagues in payroll at $83.7 million. He has to clear waivers, but, to me, unless somebody else makes a claim, which I guess could happen, but I don't see a lot of people that want to go out and take on an $18 million contract from a guy who's shown that he can be great flashes of brilliance, but also immense drop-offs. And I think Cleveland, if they were going to make a move, it would be logical to get him because Rajay Davis is getting older in left field, and you can try and make a move, get some of your outfielders to shift around, get Puig comfortable, and see what you could do.
No, I agree, and I think to be honest with you, at this point in the season, teams that are contending, Cleveland is the only slot that I can think of. The Marlins would have been a good fit, I think. It would have been a little more tricky, I think, there because of Mattingly. But
yes. And plus, once you get Stanton back, what are you going to? How many outfielders do you want to have? Yeah,
right.
Because he has 2 years left on that contract.
But I think Cleveland would be a great choice if the Dodgers decide that they're not going to keep him, which, in my opinion, that's the smart move for Los Angeles. None of the other teams that are competing I can really think of need a fielder, especially a right fielder. I mean, Washington doesn't need one, right? Nobody that I can think of. No, and even Cleveland doesn't really need a guy, but they're gonna need a guy.
Right.
Like you said, Davis is getting old.
He'd be a nice bolster, for a couple of years, and then if I think the thing you got to look at though is I don't think he would stay in Cleveland long term, right. And I think the question that they have to take would be, do they think that adding him gives them that push to make it into the World Series, or at least to try and face Texas?
Right. So here's my question. Why, other than Don Mattingly, wouldn't Yasiel Puig go to the Marlins right now?
Well, Chris, there happens to be one other guy on that Marlins roster who currently is playing right field for them. He's the newest member of the 3,000 Hit Club, and when we come back from this break, we're going to talk about Ichiro Suzuki filling in for Giancarlo Stanton, and even better, if Ichiro had played the majority of his career, say 2 years in Japan and the rest in the big leagues, would he actually be the all-time hit king over Pete Rose? Guys, stay tuned. We will answer that question for you when we come back. This is Out of Left Field.
Hey guys, this is Chris from Out of Left Field. The baseball season is closing in October, and while there may not be much better than playoff baseball, college football and the NFL are about to kick off. At thegruelingtruth.net, you can read Jaron Anderson's NCAA rankings or get Mike Goodpaster and Matt Andruskovich's rankings on everything NFL, plus interviews with NFL legends. And Oz Davis covers the Canadian Football League on Rouge, White, and Blue. All that plus boxing coverage and MLB player and power rankings at thegruelingtruth.net. The Grueling Truth on Facebook and at Grueling Truth on Twitter. Thegruelingtruth.net, where legends speak.
And welcome back to Out of Left Field, guys. Graham and Chris still here with you. Appreciate you hanging around with us. So, Chris, we teased it before the break. You and I have butted heads over this. I've already answered this question. I think it was our third or fourth show. I think it was our fourth show, actually. And we were talking about when Ichiro hit number 2,980, I think is what it was. And it put his career hit record, both in Japan and the big leagues, beyond the 4,200 and whatever number that Pete Rose hit. And, of course, there was this huge thing of, is Ichiro the hit king? And you and I both said no. Okay? You can't take hits from a different league and bring it to the big leagues. But I still believe, and I guess we're going to go ahead. Actually, you know what? Let me, before that. Ichiro is now the Marlins' everyday right fielder. Okay? He's hitting .303 this season, 74 hits, 244 ABs. And a lot of those ABs have been one or two per game. He has seen, I don't know, maybe couple dozen games where he's played the whole thing. Okay? So the question is simple. If he had played 2 seasons in Japan and come to the bigs, would Ichiro Suzuki have passed Pete Rose's hit total? So before I throw it to you, my friend, we had a couple guys on Facebook get back with us, and they had differing opinions. But I think it's the beauty of this question is that it's going to run the gamut of people. I think you can agree on that. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So William Kinch said this on our Facebook page, which is Out of Left Field, guys. Out of Left Field on Facebook. Find us on Twitter at OOLeftField. And, of course, you can always shoot us an email at ooleftfield@gmail.com. William said the wear and tear of 20 Major League seasons would have had the same effect on Ichiro that it has had on every other hitter not named Pete Rose. One very big reason, traveling to away games in Japan is akin to all MLB games taking place in the state of California. We will and should classify him as one of the great hitters ever. William says, I classify him in the Jeter, Rose, Boggs, Yount, Gwynn, Carew level of all-time great hitters, but not in the Aaron, Musial, Yastrzemski, Murray level of hitter. Huge difference to me between the power hitters in the 3,000 club and the singles double hitters. He says no. Now, my response to that, William, is if you're classifying him in the Jeter and the Rose and the Boggs side, I mean, those are widely considered the greatest hitters ever. Hank Aaron, Musial, Yastrzemski, Murray, I mean, they're great hitters as well, and obviously they were power hitters, but not all power hitters are going to be, they may be the 3,000 hit guys, but those guys also strike out a lot. And Ichiro, as we've discussed, had the ability to be both a power hitter if he wanted to, but chose to do more with his bat to get on base, keep his on base up, and then use his feet. Brian Horsewood thinks differently. Brian said, I think he would have passed Rose. The seasons are shorter in Japan, but his hit totals were still very impressive. Also, let's not forget the fact that Ichiro was raking in Major League Baseball from the moment he started playing. So, guys, thank you, William and Brian, for commenting on Facebook. Guys, you can please do the same for us. Anytime you see a show, you have a topic that you want us to talk about, if we post something on there, leave a comment. If it's really, really good, we love it. If it's controversial, hey, you might just make the show. So, Chris Furry, the ball now in your court. Would Ichiro Suzuki have passed Pete Rose if he had played 2 years in Japan and had come over here his age 20 season?
No, I don't think you would have.
I am actually surprised it took you that long to say it, because it looked for a moment like you actually considered saying yes. I probably would have fallen over in my chair.
Let's look at age 20, right? And for the only thing that we can, we're gonna use his Japan numbers, because that's the only thing we have to use. So when he was 20 years old, we're going to look at age 22, excuse me, which is the same year that Pete Rose made his debut in Major League Baseball. We can go back to age 20 for both of them if you want to. It doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. The guys are basically twins. Okay? And there's no denying that. When in 1996, when Ichiro Suzuki was 22, he had 193 hits in Japan. Pete Rose, age 22, he had 170. So when you look at it that way, it sounds like I'm about to disprove my own theory, right? But here's the issue. When you look at Ichiro coming into the bigs, into our bigs, he does rake from the very beginning. 242 hits his first season in Seattle. But he drops off pretty significantly towards the end of his career, in a way that Pete Rose didn't. So what I'd really like to look at is the age of 38, 39, 40, and 41. Ichiro Suzuki's 42 years old. When he was 38 in 2012, he played 162 games, had 178 hits. When that was total. Now that's split between 105 in Seattle and 73 in New York. The following year, at 39, he goes down to 136 hits. Right? Now, you look at 38 for Pete Rose, he hit 208. 39, he hit 185. At 40, he hit 140. At 41, he hit 172. And at 42, he hit 121. So, for Ichiro Suzuki to maintain that level of hitting late in his career, at 39 he hit 136, at 40 he hit 102, at 41 he hit 91, and now so far at 42 he has 74 hits. I get it, he's not playing every game, but he played 153 games last season, and he played 143 games the season before. He had 400 plus at bats last season, and he still only had 91 hits.
Granted, and one thing I will say is I think part of what hurt Ichiro is the fact that he did not, he didn't stay with the same team. Okay, when he was starting every day, he was close to almost double the plate appearances he had last year. Okay, his top years was 692, 704, 679, 695. So. Yes, he might have played in every game, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he was coming to the plate 3-4 times in that span. I think it's pretty clear from how I've already prefaced this that I disagree with you.
Sure.
I will say that I think you have. I think the more that we've talked, I'm surprised that you are much more open-minded with the idea than you seem to be the first time I brought it up to you. Okay. Ichiro played 9 seasons in Japan. All right. Debuted as an 18-year-old. Okay. His third season was the first one he played more than 100 games. He had 210 hits. And his lowest total over the next 6 years in Japan was 141. And they're playing 20 to 30 fewer games per season. Something else we got to consider here. And the one caveat to this.
But he's getting the same number of at-bats. The guy's still coming to at-bat 600-plus times in a season.
But that's the impressive thing is that you look at what was happening in Japan, what he was doing, you add 20 or 30 more games to that at that age, he would have started putting up, mid-200 hit seasons potentially. And he would have come over, if he had done 2 years in Japan, he would have come over right as the strike ended. Okay? Now, the one thing that could have potentially hurt him is we had the steroid thing, and obviously he wouldn't have, I doubt he would have partook in that. But his first season in the bigs, he hit safely 242 times. His first decade, his lowest hit total was 206. So let's look at this. So from age 27 to 36 years old, Ichiro Suzuki had 2,244 hits. Okay? He's averaged 198 hits in 16 seasons. To put this in perspective, out of the 30 men who are part of the 3,000 hit club, Ichiro is the only player to have 0 hits by his age 26 season. Pete Rose has 899 hits through age 26.
Yes, but it's not like he wasn't playing baseball through age 26. He was playing baseball through age 26.
I get that, but my point is this.
Okay, so
this guy has amassed 3,000 hits, a record that is looked upon with some of the greatest amount of respect in Major League Baseball, and is the only man to be able to do that. Amassed 3,000 Major League hits, and he had absolutely 0 before age 27.
Okay, but he still did it in 16 seasons, right?
Right.
In 16 seasons of Major League play, he's 164 hits behind Pete Rose. And only 4 years older. Only 4 years older.
But say that again, because I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
If you say 26, right?
Right.
Pete Rose came into the league at 22. When both of them reached 16 Major League Baseball seasons, Pete Rose had 164 more hits.
Right, and that's fine.
And was only 4 years younger.
But my point, but that's dude. But you know how big those 4 years are in professional sports. You're telling me that a guy getting his start at 27 years old in the big leagues and then trying, after he's already played 9 years professional somewhere else, which is already a feat in itself, and still managing to get 3,000 hits. My point is that I think he would have, that had he come over in 2 years, he would have been 20 years old when he first got into the big leagues. I get it that he would have entered younger than Pete Rose did, but he had a major league pedigree as soon as he came into professional baseball, regardless of where it was. I mean, to me, the biggest reason that he will never be considered the hit king is because of the way that Japanese baseball, how difficult they make it for guys to come over here. And we can get into that in a second, but, I mean, he played 83 games his first 2 years in Japan. He would have played more than that in the major leagues, clearly. He could, the guy could hit anywhere on the field, and his speed was one of the best when he was in his prime. So I get what you're saying. I get, Pete Rose could spray the ball, and he had a great team around him to go ahead and kind of protect where he was in the order. But the way that Ichiro hits, had he come over at 20 years old, I completely believe that he would have been able to surpass Pete Rose's total hit record.
I don't agree. I completely disagree.
So then tell me this. If you disagree, tell me where he would have ranked behind Pete Rose all time.
2.
Second? You think it would have been second?
I think 2 is a fair assessment of his ability to hit.
How far back?
If he comes over at 20, couple hundred hits, 4,000. 4,100 maybe.
So you think he could have crested 4,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think that he.
That's a lot more than I thought you would have. That's a lot more than I thought you would have given him credit for. I'm surprised.
Well, I mean, give credit where credit is due, right? The guy managed to get 91 hits in 438 plate appearances last season. But one point that I would like to make is, why does Ichiro Suzuki not play every inning? Why does he not play right field every day? Why is he not on a team where they need a guy who can play right field every day, who can hit the way Ichiro can hit? The guy's hitting 303 right now, right?
Because to me, I think we're at the point now where age is so negatively looked upon in the big leagues that once you begin to get older, you're just kind of a veteran presence, quote unquote,
but
instead of actually being a viable option.
But look at his defensive numbers. He has lost a step. He is getting older. He is losing some of his ability to play in the field. Major League Baseball, the rigors of Major League Baseball are taking a toll on him after 16 years. Now, I can't say that they wouldn't take a toll on him after 20, right? So say 20 years in the bigs, would those rigors have taken just as great a toll on him? I think maybe even greater. But the fact is that after 20 years in the big leagues, Pete Rose was still getting 120, 130 hits a season. I don't think Ichiro Suzuki could have done that 20 years in the bigs. I just don't see it. And now, in order to use your number to make up that 1,000 hits in 4 years, the guy has to hit almost 500 hits a season. Or almost 250. Almost 250 hits a season to make up that 1,000 hits, and he's still 200 hits away.
But you're prefacing all this off of the fact that they come in the league at the same age. I'm not talking about age. If
but you said those.
You
said
those
4 years are
Japan. Right. I'm saying that yes, there was 4 years between them as far as it was 4 years from 22 to. All right, hold on. The whole idea was that at before age 26, okay, that Rose had hit roughly 900 hits in 4 years. Okay. What my point is here is that while Rose entered the game at 22, Ichiro would have come in the game at age 20. That's the scenario. Is 2 years in Japan, comes over here at 20. So he has 6 years, 20 to 26, to make 900 hits, which is completely plausible.
No, it's 7 years, 7 seasons, right? If he would have come at 20, he played 9 minus 2 would be 7 seasons.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because, the 1 plus the, so yeah, 7 seasons. To get 900 hits to keep up with just by age 26. And at 200 hits a season, he could have, he was averaging roughly 200 hits per season. He's averaging that now, 198 per season. So if he's at that clip, in
let me ask
7
you this.
seasons, is 1,400 hits.
Let me ask you this. After two seasons in Japan, he comes here after only 2 seasons of baseball, instead of 9 seasons of baseball. 9 seasons of everyday experience playing baseball. And he faces major league pitching. You really think he's going to do that well? At 20? You think that at 20 he was more ready to play Major League Baseball than he was at 26?
I'm not saying he was more ready, but I think that what he had there. He goes from playing 40 games, 43 games to 130. Okay, so he roughly tripled.
He became a starter.
Right. He roughly tripled his. Right, but he triples his starting numbers. Okay, and puts up 210 hits that season after 12 his second year and 24 in his first year. So 36 hits in a combined 83 games, and then 210 hits in his first full season. So yes, I believe that if you're telling me he can go from that small of a chunk of performance in 2 years and turn it on like that coming in, that he had the pedigree to do so in the big leagues. You can call me crazy, call me naive.
I think you're crazy
okay?
and naive.
Okay, and you're a Giants homer, and it's all good. But to me, even if you give him a third season in Japan, he could have surpassed Pete Rose's hit.
Okay. So just out of curiosity, since he would have been 20, do we get to look at Pete Rose when he's 22?
Why does the age he came in matter? The issue is, would he have passed the record? Not would he have passed it in the same amount of time, but would he have passed it?
Because those seasons are important.
Yes, they
You're
are.
You're adding 7 Major League Baseball seasons full of at-bats to Ichiro's lifetime number of at-bats.
But you're also then telling me that that's okay because Pete Rose started playing Major League Baseball at 22, and Ichiro Suzuki didn't start playing Major League Baseball until 27. So if that's the case, then why don't we? Then I could say, let's go back and look at Ichiro's record time when he was 22 to now, and we've already said that we can't do that. So if it's okay that Pete Rose comes in at 22, then what would have happened if Ichiro had come over and had started playing baseball at age 20? Because that's what I'm saying. You give him 2 years in Japan, maybe 3 years in Japan, and you put him in the big leagues and let him start. That's the point of my argument. And I believe if you had done that, he could have surpassed Pete Rose's hit record. So
I disagree. I disagree. I don't see it. I don't see it as happening.
We've already discussed this. Umpires are right 98% of the time, and this is one of those times, man. It's okay. You're just wrong.
It's not. It's just not. It's just not. I don't see it. I don't think it. I don't think that. I think that your way of looking at things is off. I don't think that Ichiro Suzuki was ready to play Major League Baseball at 22 or at 20. I don't think he was ready after 2 seasons in Japanese baseball. I don't think he was ready to come here and face Major League pitchers at that time. Because if he was, then 7 more years wouldn't have passed between
Incorrect.
the time that he was ready and the time
Incorrect.
that he came.
You are incorrect, and I can tell you why.
Okay, tell me why.
Okay. Under the system devised by the Nippon Professional Baseball and Major League Baseball, it's a Japanese baseball league, Japanese players must wait 9 years before they can enter free agency. They then must inform their team of their desire to join Major League Baseball. Their team has to approve it. They then have 30 days to agree to terms with whichever Major League team wins a silent auction just to have exclusive negotiating rights with that player.
So here's my question.
He couldn't even become a free agent until 9 years into his professional career.
I think you're wrong, and I know that might currently be the case, but I can almost guarantee you that was not the case in the 1990s, because Hideo Nomo came to Major League Baseball and played for the Dodgers after 5 years in Japanese baseball.
Because Nomo retired, and it was a huge point of contention between the NPB and Major League Baseball, because Nomo said, you know what, I quit playing, and then came over to America and said, hey, I want to play for you guys. And when that happened, they reached out and said, if you guys are going to take our players, we want some type of compensation back for this. And that's when this came into effect. So this was what Bud Selig and the NPB decided would work best for both sides.
Okay, but, however, that would have come into effect after you say he was ready to come to the United States. If that
Correct.
was the reason that it came into effect, because Nomo retired and then came here and it came into effect after that happened, that time period is after the time period that you say Ichiro Suzuki was ready to come play ball. In fact, it was 2 years after that time period.
When did Nomo come over to the U.S.?
1995.
Okay, so during the strike.
No, the strike was in 93.
Or not 94.
The strike was in 93.
Okay. Hey, I was like 6 years old, so you know what? Spare me.
I know. I actually, the day that they announced the strike, my mom and I drove to an Oakland A's game, and we're standing in front of the ticket booth when they announced that the players had struck and the game wouldn't be played that day. And for a 10-year-old kid, that's a hard thing to hear.
So let me ask you then one thing.
He came to the United States. He got here in 1994 and played a little bit with the
strike began August 12th, 1994, and ended on April 2nd, 1995.
Right, but you're saying that Suzuki would have been ready to come in 1993.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so if in 1995 that is what took place with Nomo coming over here in 95, and because he played baseball in 94 in Japan, he came here in 95 and played in Bakersfield for the Dodgers and then moved up to the Dodgers later in 95.
Yep.
If him coming here was the catalyst for that rule, then you're saying that he would have been ready at the same time that Nomo played here, which means
so.
that rule was not in effect when he was ready.
And
so he could have come here and played.
Yes, I believe he could have. The caveat to that, okay, is Nomo was, I believe, the second Japanese player and the first in about 20 or 30 years to come over to the U.S. That door really had not been opened. Nomo is the one that is widely credited with opening that door to Japanese players. So I understand this entire thing is hypothetical. The entire point is, if it had happened, would Ichiro have done this? It's not a matter of this is wrong because he could have and didn't. There are a lot of players that potentially could have and didn't. Nomo tried. Nomo succeeded. Nomo is the reason that Kaz Matsui and Daisuke Matsu threw a no-hitter, at least. And, I mean, he was pretty well known, at least in L.A., for a good portion of time. He was a nice, he was kind of the nice breath of fresh air after you lost Fernando Mania.
He threw a no-hitter early, and when nobody could understand what that tornado windup was about, when he still had players on their heels. But let's look at how prepared he really was to play Major League Baseball. After that first season, everybody adjusted to him. His ERA jumped from 2.54 to 3.19 to 4.25 to 5.
So how would you have adjusted to Ichiro Suzuki? Because adjusting to a pitcher is a lot different than as a hitter.
But pitchers can adjust to Suzuki, and they have in his division. And I think they would have early in his career. Not to mention that if he would have come here after his second season, he would have only seen pitches in less than 150 at-bats. Even if he came here after his third season in Japanese baseball, he has less than 1,000 at-bats under his belt. Lifetime.
Okay.
So you want a guy who has less than 1,000 lifetime at-bats to come play Major League Baseball and be as successful as he was after he had 5,000 5,000 lifetime at-bats under his belt? Minor league guys who are the number one guys in our minor league system can't do that.
All I am saying to you is I believe Ichiro Suzuki had the pedigree to come over here, be a starter at a young age, and surpass Pete Rose.
I don't know.
It's okay to be wrong, Battle. It's okay to be wrong, man.
I know. It's okay for you to be wrong. And you are wrong. Because you're trying to tell me that a guy who has less than 1,000 at-bats lifetime is going to do something that no American player can do with less than 1,000 at-bats lifetime. These guys play in the minor leagues for a season or two, get 600-700 at-bats before they come into the bigs, and they still struggle. And these are guys who grew up on American baseball, who grew up playing the game here. And you're going to tell me that number one prospects are worse baseball players than Ichiro Suzuki was at 20 years old with less than 150 at-bats under his belt? No.
I am not. I'm not saying that they're worse baseball players, but if you look at what Ichiro did, his mechanics, the way that he hits, he is something that that hitters have not seen. He does things in an unorthodox way that is successful. And the biggest thing you could try and tell me is that maybe he pulls the ball. The shift wasn't even really around at that point anyway. He can hit. He finds holes and he gets into it.
I don't see him coming over here with less than 1,000 at-bats under his belt and raking the way he did after he came over here with 5,000 plus at-bats under his belt. He needed that experience to come over here and rake the way he did.
Okay.
There's no way I can agree with that because our minor league players don't do that. The best guys, Bryce Harper didn't do that.
3 years in the minors, I think. 2 years.
3 years in the minors. Did he come up and hit 242 hits? No, he came up and struggled his first season.
And he's still struggling now.
Well, I mean, he was the MVP last year, so struggling now. But his first season, he struggled, right? Because he had to adjust to major league pitching. But he didn't have 5,000 at bats under his belt. So tell me how Pete Rose comes up at 22 years old and his first season is 170 hits. But look at Pete Rose's time in the minors.
3 years, 89 hits, 160, 178.
Right. He played high A ball in Macon for the Cincinnati Reds high A team.
Yep.
Played in 139 games, had 623 at bats and 178 hits his last season in the minor leagues.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy who is watching pitchers who are ready to play Major League Baseball. This is a guy who doesn't have to adjust. Now, I've been having this argument all week, okay, about pitching now and pitching then.
All right, guys, if he's been having this all week, then why haven't our listeners been bombarding Chris Furry with reasons why this argument makes sense? At OO Left Field on Twitter, Out of Left Field on Facebook.
I've been having the argument about the quality of pitching in 1960 and the quality of pitching in the 1990s and beyond. I've been having this argument about Babe Ruth and Barry Bonds, about if Barry Bonds is a better hitter than Babe Ruth, because Babe Ruth only saw 16 teams pitchers, and he was hitting 4 and 5 times a game, and guys weren't throwing 97, 98, 99 miles an hour. But the fact of the matter is, guys might not have been throwing 99 miles an hour, but in 1935, guys were throwing 97 miles an hour. The curveball, the slider, the spitball, all of those things, all of these specialized pitches that we see now, those things existed before Babe Ruth. Those things existed before Pete Rose. However, was the quality of pitching in 1963 the same as the quality of pitching in 1993? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Would any player from Pete Rose's era come to this era right now and be flummoxed? Absolutely. And so would Ichiro Suzuki. You're talking about a guy who went into baseball at a time when the fastball was the pitch of the day. He saw fastballs on probably 80% of the pitches that he hit. You're not talking about a guy like Suzuki who would have come into the major leagues in the 1990s and faced sliders, slurves, curves, sinkers, all these specialized pitches that not only as a put-out pitch, but these are pitches that these guys are pitching 40 and 50% of the time. He's not just chasing fastballs like Pete Rose was in 1963. That's why Pete Rose doesn't have to come in and adjust, because a fastball is a fastball is a fastball. All you have to do is make sure that you can get faster with it.
So your argument is that because Pete Rose played in an era where the fastball was the pitch of the day, that is the thing that puts him over the top and makes it where Ichiro would not have passed him?
That is the thing that proves the argument of him not having to adjust like Ichiro would have had to adjust.
Okay. Well, the eephus pitches and some of the crazy things, the gyro ball we've seen from Daisuke, the things from Nomo, the things from Matsuzaka, or the things from Tanaka, I think prove that there is some pitching that happens over there that is a lot different than what you see now, and we've seen how that can throw players off.
If you want to ask me the question, if Ichiro Suzuki would have gone into the major leagues in 1963 and played 25 years, would he have beat Pete Rose's record? I can agree with that. If you want to talk about apples to apples to apples, then yes, I can agree with that. But no, I don't think that Ichiro Suzuki would have come over here in 1994, 1995, 1996 and played the way that he did in 2001, 2002.
Okay. Well,
I think he needed that experience.
Okay. Well, guys, as we round out the show tonight, unfortunately, Chris, your argument has been cut down trying to slide headfirst into home. And lo and behold, that throw happened to come straight out of left field. So, guys, hope you enjoyed the show. It was some good back and forth. You know what? We put up the post this week on Facebook. You know, do you think he would have done it? So tell us if you agree or not. Now you know where we stand. Okay, Chris is wrong saying no. And you know that I am saying that I believe that he could have legitimately done it. And granted, Chris made some, I guess we could say, half-decent arguments, maybe full decent. I don't know. All right, but some good stuff, man. Great show. Always good to get into a debate with someone, especially when I can prove them wrong. So, bro, before we go, anything else that you want to add? Anything that you kind of want to tease for next week that maybe we're going to be getting into?
Nothing that I really want to tease for next week. I mean, I think we're going to talk about the new number 24 on the Yankees, right? Who's just hitting home run after home run after home run. And we didn't really get into Francoeur going to the Marlins, which is the real reason why Puig's not going.
Yeah.
And who is probably going to be taking over in right field for Suzuki, which would have probably been a really good lead into this whole argument that you were wrong about. So, that being said,
did we have another argument that I'm not aware of? Because I only remember arguing
about Ichiro. Just the one about Ichiro.
Okay, so you misspoke again because I was right on that one.
Oh, there you go again, being wrong.
But all right, guys, yeah, next week going to be some good stuff talking about Gary Sanchez, the Yankees, and apparently the court is in session because Judge is absolutely just driving the ball crazy out of Yankee Stadium. So if you guys ever have anything that you want to talk to us about, throw out some ideas, please do. At OO Left Field on Twitter, ooleftfield@gmail.com. You can email us or find on Facebook, Out of Left Field, hosted by Graham and Chris. Again, guys, Out of Left Field brought to you by the Grueling Truth Network. Please go to thegruelingtruth.net. Take a look at the shows there. Support us. Support them. And we will see you guys back next week with more ideas where I am right and Chris is wrong that are coming straight out of left field. See you guys next week.